Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rashi Parasha Study Parashat Tisa. Within this parasha, the most famous story, obviously, is Ha'egel. And the Mefarshim have a lot of different approaches, exactly how to deal with Ha'egel, what exactly was Am Yisrael doing. But today, I'd like to focus on Rashi's approach of specifically the actions of Aharon HaKohen. And here we have really something fascinating because obviously there's a theological question. How could Aharon remain in his position as someone who was in charge of Am Yisrael and enabled Het Ha'egel to occur? How can we possibly say that Aharon is going to maintain his position as the Kohen Gadol, atoning for Am Yisrael on Kippur, the day Am Yisrael was forgiven about the actions of Het Ha'egel, if Aharon was responsible for creating the Egel, as it says at the end of the parasha, the last pasuk of Perek Lamed Bet, "Vayigof Hashem et ha'am al asher asu et ha'egel asher asa Aharon." And she systematically, throughout the story, shapes the story in a way that attempts to remove the guilt, that attempts to remove the responsibility of the Egel from Aharon HaKohen. Although there's more to say when Moshe repeats the story in Sefer Devarim, but Be'ezrat Hashem, when we get there, we can then go and compare Moshe's statements about Aharon. But here, see the story. Seemingly, Aharon escapes unscathed from Het Ha'egel, at least according to the story, uh, and he moves on. And we'll see really that she is going to say not only does he move on, but we'll see even more. So let's get to it. And the first thing we'll start with is Pasuk Bet, that Aharon says, Parakun nizmeh zahav asher be'oznein shechem. Give me the gold that is on the ears of your wives. V'haviu elai. And that's all he says. Okay, go get the gold. And as she comments, Amar Aharon bilibu. Aharon thought, Hanashim v'eladim hasim al tachshitehen. The wives, the children, who he's asking to get the gold from, they like their jewelry. They're not going to give it. Shema, yita'akev hadavar. Toch kach yavo Moshe. We'll delay it when the husband doesn't have to go to his wife. Ask him by the time she agrees, so on and so forth, until they give it. It'll be nighttime. Okay, I'll tell him come back tomorrow. Yita'akev hadavar. Toch kach yavo Moshe. And then eventually Moshe will come because of this delay. But instead, him lo hintinu. They didn't wait. Upariku ve'al atzman. And they took the jewelry off themselves, and El Aharon, and therefore Aharon is now in trouble. Plan one didn't go so well because the pasuk states they don't actually ask their wives. Instead, they take off on themselves. Right? He says, "But was named Shechem." This takes off the jewelry. The pasuk says, "But was him," and they give it to him as opposed to was named Shechem, and therefore Aharon. His first tactic was in trouble. So Aharon takes it and he puts the gold and he throws it into the fire. Ya'asehu egel masecha, the pasuk says. Okay, so seemingly he made an egel masecha. He shaped it in the shape of an egel. A masecha is a mold, and therefore it came out as an egel, as a ox. But Rashi comments and tells us something directly opposed to the peshat of the pesukim. He says, "Kevan shishlicho labor, באו מכשפי ערב רב, שעלו עמהם ממצרים, ועשאוהו בכשפים." Once Rashi throws it into the pit, come the magicians of the Erev Rav. Now Rashi reads a lot of the Erev Rav into the story as well. It's not always focusing specifically on Aharon actions, but Rashi also seems to insert the Erev Rav in a significant way in order to defend the actions of Am Yisrael. It's this interesting approach in what Rashi is doing. There's a lot of commentators, the Kuzari, the Ibn Ezra, and the Ramban, they're all trying to deal with why was Am Yisrael not punished as much as they were, and Rashi's approach highlighting that it might have not really been them who were the big problem in this story. So the Erev Rav comes, and they made it. Not Aharon, but the Erev Rav. Why does he say this? Where does he get this from? Later on, when he's speaking to Moshe, he says as follows: "Ba'ashirchehu ba'esh But Yetzeh ha'egel hazeh. I threw it into the fire, and the egel came out, as if he didn't plan it. Some commentators say he actually lied to Moshe. I know he made it a masecha, but Rashi says no. If Aharon is saying it, he's not lying. It means Aharon did not anticipate coming a masecha. But now, so ve'yasehu, real erevra. Rashi is a little bit bothered. Why is it written in singular ve'yasehu? It should say ve'yasuhu. So instead, he brings a different approach that it might have been one person specifically. ויש אומרים היה שם, שיצא מתוך דמוס בניין שנערך בו במצרים, והיה בידו שם, וטס שכתב בו משה על השור להרות על עונו של יוסף מתוך נילוס, ושליחו לתוך הבקור ויצא העגל. And he says that the Micha was one of the children who was put in the bricks of the pyramids in Egypt that they were building. And because the Jewish people did not have enough bricks, so part of the punishment, according to the Midrash, they would take the children and use them as bricks instead. And Moshe took him out, and he followed Moshe, and he took this writing that Moshe wrote when Moshe wanted to get the coffin of Yosef from Egypt, from the Nile River. He didn't know how to get it, so he wrote something aleh shur, shur meaning an ox, because Yosef was compared to an ox by his father, and therefore by Moshe later on in his life, and by Yaakov as well. That pasuk was by Moshe and Vezot Beracha, and he writes Alei Shor Yosef arise. He takes that Shem after Moshe leaves. He goes, takes that paper with Shem Hashem on it, throws it into the fire, into the furnace, and the egel, the golden calf, comes out of it. So therefore, that's why the egel came out. V'yasehu egel masecha, specifically this person Micha, but not Aharon, right? So we can get a sense that she is aiding in Midrash. These are traditions that he has that obviously are going to be difficult to substantiate from Peshat to Pesukim, but because of the contradiction to the Pasuk later when he's talking to Moshe, that seems to be the motivation of Rashi to say that it was not Aharon who created the egel. So Aharon is now in trouble. So he didn't want them. He wanted to delay the bringing of the gold. Didn't work. He wanted he didn't know what he was creating. All of a sudden, the egel comes out. He's in trouble, and therefore, in the next pasuk, Vayad Aharon, she says, "What is Aharon? Vayad Aharon ve'ibn mizbeach lefanav." That's what the pasuk says. What did Aharon see? Right. So Aharon realized he's in trouble. Why? Vayad Aharon she'abaru hayim, that the shore was alive. Shneimad b'tavnit shor. He brings a pasuk from Tehillim that says they angered Hashem when it's talking about the story of Hayta'ayil. But Tavnit Shor was the shape of an ox that was Ochel Isib, that ate grass. So that's she. Okay, the ox is alive. It's eating grass. But Satan, that the Satan succeeded in doing what he was trying to do. And he realized he couldn't push him off completely. He realized there were forces. That's what it means. The Satan, the forces working against him. He doesn't know what to do. Therefore, even what does that mean? Why did Aharon build the mizbeach? He said, "Listen, okay, well, he's nervous. They're going to stop worshiping right now. It has life. It looks like divine. So he said, okay, we're going to build the mizbeach right now, and therefore it's going to delay the process, and therefore he builds it himself, and which we'll see that she will tell us later. He did it himself. Not that everybody's bringing their own stone. He did it himself to take time. But Yom Hag Hashem Mahar, and he says." We're going to have a celebration for Hashem. Notice the word Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, not any other god. Mahar, tomorrow. So again, Aharon constantly delaying the process and not feeling that he has the ability to actually control the situation, and therefore his form of control is to work with them and delay as opposed to directly contradict them. So here, Rashi brings a midrash, a famous midrash. What is Aharon seeing? Why is he approaching it from the tactic of delay as opposed to forcing them to listen to him? So he says like this: Devarim Rabbeh Aharon. So according to midrash, he saw a lot of different things, not just that the egel was alive. Firstly, Ra'ah Hor ben Achoto Shemo Chacham L'Haraguhu. Zehu even mizbeach lefanav, even mizavuach lefanav. Number one, he says Rashi, based off the Midrash, pointing out that it's supposed to be another person with Aharon, and that is Hur, the son of his sister, but ben of Miriam. That because Rashi, Moshe comments to Am Yisrael when he goes up to Har Sinai, Hine Aharon v'Hur imachem, v'ba'al devarim yigash alehem. So Aharon and Hur were jointly placed in charge, and where did Hur go in the story of the Egel? So therefore, the Midrash assumes that Hur was trying to stop them. He was killed. And therefore, instead of even Mizbeach lefanav, you could find a hint if you change the Nikudot, even Mizavuach lefanav. He builds the Mizbeach because of the person who was sacrificed in front of him, that namely Hod, who sacrificed himself to attempt to stop Am Yisrael. So he realized that, okay, I'm not going to work. I have to pursue a tactic of delay as opposed to a tactic of direct confrontation, because it already failed the tactic of direct confrontation. So that's the first Vayad. The second Vayad, he said, you know what? Let me take the hit for it. Let me take the responsibility for creating this Egel as opposed to them. And notice what this idea means here. The Kohen is the Shaliach B'Am Yisrael. And Aharon, why is he deserving of being the Kohen, the Shaliach B'Am Yisrael? Because he loves them so much, and he says, I'd rather suffer than they suffer. I'd rather suffer for the sin than they're going to suffer for the sin. And indeed, in Sefer Devarim, he loses 2 out of his 4 children, according to Rashi, because of the actions that he did here in the Egel. So Aharon is suffering greatly for what he does. But he says, I'd rather be the one absorbing the brunt of the punishment and anger from Hashem. And that's the role of a Kohen. They're going to do it anyway. So I might as well just take the responsibility. ועוד ראה ואמר, אם הם בונים אותו מזבח, זה מביסור לזה מאבן, ובשר מלאכתה נעשה בבת אחת, לא שאני בונה אותו ותעשה במלאכתי, בין כך ובין כך משה בא. And the third thing he says, like Rashi commented above, he says, he had a wisdom insight. He says, if I let them build it, they're going to finish it in 10 seconds. If I build it, I'll take a slow time, and maybe Moshe will come by the time I get there. And therefore, he actually concludes the pasuk with Hagla Hashem, and she says, "B'libo hayel Shemayim, batuach haya shevu Moshe me'avdu et hamakom." Aharon really thought 1,000% Moshe is going to come. I'm going to delay this, and it's going to work out. Unfortunately, it says, "V'ahiv mahorat ve'eshkimu baboket." They wake up early in the morning in order to worship Avodah Zarah before Aharon could actually get a chance to delay them and be part of the celebration, and therefore delay them until Hashem comes, and he loses control of the situation eventually. However, I will point out the last thing, that as she says, when Moshe comes down, he says, "V'yasvu elav kol bnei Levi." And as she comments, "Mikan shekol hashevet kasher." Rashi, what are you trying to say here? Oh, here I see the whole shevet is kosher because it says kol bnei Levi, so therefore they're all kosher. So, okay, what do I need to know this for? And I think the answer being, kol hashevet kasher, who's the one that he wants to make sure that we understand this kasher? Who's the ben of Levi that we might suspect is not kasher? And that would be Aharon Kohen. So here you have an example of how Rashi is reading the text in a way purposely framed in order to deal really with a theological question. How can it be that Aharon HaKohen is the one who continues in his position as Kohen Gadol? And Rashi essentially says, because what he does is the ultimate act of the Kohen, especially according to the Midrash. The Kohen is not the leader, political leader of the people. He can't force the people. He's the messenger of the people to do what they want. And therefore, he's willing to take responsibility so they don't suffer, because he realizes he doesn't have the political capital to stop them. And instead, he tries to subvert it in his own ways and with his delay tactics. And additionally, ultimately, he tries to take responsibility so they don't suffer as much as he is going to suffer. That's what makes Aharon a Kohen. According to Rashi, there's a lot to talk about here. There's different commentators, there's different explanations, but definitely I think this is one of the more fascinating insights into Aharon Kohen, what he's thinking and what he's trying to do. And hopefully we all, especially anyone who's a Kohen, can rest assured that their forefather was coming from a place of righteousness. Shabbat Shalom.